Several days, Daisy woke up disoriented, unsure of her surroundings. It took her a moment to remember she'd moved out of Roman's place. Their bedroom had a bed facing the window with single-layered curtains. The moment daylight crept in, casting a faint glow, Daisy's sensitivity to light stirred her awake. She'd lay there, not wanting to disturb Kevin in the other room, staring at the soft yellow curtains in a daze. Back at her and Roman's place, the bedroom had double-layered curtains. Roman always kept them shut, even slipping away quietly sometimes to avoid the sunlight. Regardless of when she awoke, the room remained dark. Daisy found solace in the darkness, a place where she felt safe and at ease. She liked daydreaming, especially about Roman. Reflecting on their shared moments filled her heart with warmth. They rarely argued, and even when they did, those memories felt comforting. With these thoughts, life seemed less somber. Daisy couldn't tell how much time passed before she heard Kevin getting up. It was clear he was rising earlier than usual. He headed to the vegetable market for fresh produce. He often said she had lost weight and her cheeks were sunken. She needed to make up for it. She chuckled at his remark. She might replenish her weight, but her heart was a different story. Daisy only got up after Kevin left. She began her day by cleaning, mopping the floor, and dusting. The kitchen stayed neat, and the bathroom gleamed. Kevin playfully called her a germaphobe now, as the kitchen was so pristine he hesitated to cook in it. Daisy seldom spoke, just smiled. Sometimes Kevin, seeing her this way, would get a bit irritated and call her out, but she remained silent and kept her smile. Kevin was at a loss about what to do with her, so he had long labeled her as crazy. Consider her a lunatic, and her world becomes simple. She's straightforward. When she loves someone, it's wholehearted. She'd endure anything as long as the person she loves remains good and true. And she didn't care to expel her inner turmoil to Kevin, who persisted in his dislike for Roman. If he thought she was a lunatic for missing the one man who had made her what she was today, who had shown her the way of love and made her feel wanted, so be it. When Kevin returned from shopping, the kitchen was already immaculate, and Daisy was finishing up the furniture. He entered and glanced at her, shaking his head. "You can't go a day without cleaning, can you?" Daisy smiled, put down the rag, and went to take the groceries from his hands. "What did you get for breakfast today?" Kevin proudly raised the plastic bag he held. "Fresh buns from the supermarket. They just released them today. I saw only a few people in line, so I grabbed them. Been craving these for a while." Daisy replied with a jest. "Yeah, I dreamt about eating them." Although she joked, her expression made Kevin uneasy. These days, Daisy seldom responded to him jovially, so this was a pleasant surprise. He handed her a dish, asked her to go to the kitchen, and sat at the dining table to enjoy a big bun. Daisy brought out a bowl of pickles and suggested, "Kevin, just have the buns with these. They'll spice it up." Kevin peeled the bun to reveal the savory meat inside. "With these, you don't need pickles. I won't be back at noon. There's leftover food from last night. You can manage that and wait for me to cook a good meal in the evening." Daisy proposed, "How about I prepare it tonight so you can have it ready when you return?" "No, I bought fish today. Don't let it go to waste. Wait for me to cook it when I get back." Daisy commented, "Why did you buy fish again? You're the sole breadwinner now. Save some money. When I finish my painting and sell it, we can treat ourselves to something nice." Kevin frowned. "What's wrong with me earning on my own? I can support both of us, and we can have fish every day. No need to worry so much." Daisy silently ate the buns, and Kevin, after downing one, grabbed another. "I'm off now. Remember, I'll be back to cook in the evening. If you want to help, just pick the veggies and make the rice. No need to prepare other dishes. I don't want to mess them up." "I understand," Daisy replied. She followed him to the door and watched him put on his shoes. "Kevin, be safe on the road." "Okay, go back in and enjoy your breakfast." "Don't fret all day," Kevin said, gave Daisy a quick glance, and closed the door behind him. Daisy returned to the dining table. The table's paint had worn off in places, revealing the wood beneath. She had measured it and bought a clear printed rubber mat from the supermarket to cover it. Kevin had come home from work, seen it, and teased her, "I'm always saving money. Why did you waste it on this useless thing? It's just a table." She just laughed, saying nothing. To Kevin, it was an unnecessary expense, but for her, it was an investment. With the rubber mat, the tabletop would be protected and not worsen. That was worth it. Roman had taught her a lot indeed. After breakfast, she resumed her chores, cleaning inside and out. She changed her shoes and went for her daily walk down to the street's Central Park. There was a newsstand there where she'd buy a newspaper and leisurely stroll back home. She hadn't been a newspaper reader before, but after moving here, she'd started. Her reason was simple. She hoped to find news about Roman, even if it was only a mention of the name Spencer. This made her feel closer to him, as if they breathed the same air under the same sky. Even if she couldn't see him, reading a few words about him in the newspaper comforted her lovesickness. When she got home, she spread the newspaper and searched carefully, but there was no sign of Roman. She even went through the financial section, but her efforts proved fruitless. Disheartened, she put the newspaper away and turned on the TV. Nothing particularly interesting was on at the moment, so she surfed channels and stumbled upon a travel documentary featuring a famous foreign island with breathtaking sea views and swaying coconut trees. Tourists in trendy outfits frolicked on the beach. Daisy gazed at the beautiful beach on TV, and tears welled up in her eyes. She muttered to herself in a low voice, "Daisy, you're such a fool. Why are you crying over such a stunning view?" Indeed, why was she crying? Just because she couldn't visit the beach? Just because one more memory was missing from her future? It was nothing, really. Nothing at all. So why was she so overwhelmingly sad? Why couldn't she stop the tears? She had thought she wouldn't cry after leaving Roman, but the tears came more freely. Day and night, she wept. Sometimes her eyes were swollen when she woke up in the morning. Kevin tried to cheer her up with various jokes, and she would smile to save face, but the more she smiled, the grimmer Kevin's expression became. She was too lonely, and no one could see through her. Before her tears could fully dry, a knock on the door interrupted her. She hurriedly grabbed a tissue and wiped her face, then rushed to open the door. It was Aunt Helen from across the hall. She was her neighbor, and Daisy had befriended her on her first day here. She had come for some other purpose, but must have noticed that Daisy had been crying. Aunt Helen inquired, "Daisy, what's wrong? Did you have a fight with your brother?" Daisy forced a smile and replied, "No, I was just watching something on TV." Helen chuckled. "You're just like me. You can't help but cry when you see something touching." "What were you watching?" Daisy invited her inside and said, "It's nothing, just channel surfing." Helen realized she had forgotten the reason for her visit and handed her phone to Daisy. "Your brother called. He mentioned you're preparing for an art exhibition." "He couldn't explain it well, so he sent all the details to my phone. Take a look." Daisy took the phone and saw that Professor Gilbert and the gallery had already set the exhibition's time and were mounting the paintings. She copied down the details, thanking Aunt Helen for the information. Helen smiled. "Daisy, you're really having an art exhibition. I thought I misheard. It's wonderful. Our whole family will come to support you on that day." Daisy blushed and replied, "It's not a big deal. My teacher reached out and I don't even know where it is." Helen pointed to the phone. "It's written there. If you can't go alone, I'll accompany you." Daisy felt increasingly embarrassed. "No, Aunt Helen, I've already bothered you enough. I'll go and check the venue today. If I'm lucky and sell a few paintings on that day, I'll have money to buy a mobile phone. That's all. It's not a big deal, I promise. I'm not that big of an artist." Helen persisted. "Why are you denying my help? I'm a housewife and my husband and son are at work and school. I have nothing to do at home. It's not a bother at all. If it's inconvenient today, I won't go with you, but on the day of the art exhibition, I must be there. I've never been to a place like that, and I want to experience it if I get the chance. Daisy found herself without words to argue, so she simply said, "Thank you in advance, Aunt Helen." Helen replied warmly, "You're welcome. All right, I'm heading back. You stay here, but please, no more tears." Daisy agreed, and once Helen left, she washed her face in the bathroom, tucked the piece of paper with the address into her small bag, grabbed her key, and headed out. She first went to the bus station, hoping to find a direct route, but no such luck. She contemplated taking a taxi, but hesitated at the cost. When she showed the address to a taxi driver, he estimated it would be around $30. Daisy, realizing she didn't have that much money, asked if he could drop her at a bus station. The compassionate taxi driver agreed, and she got into the car with gratitude. Meanwhile, all of the angst had become too much for Roman, and he had asked Matt to keep track of Daisy. Matt informed Roman yesterday that the art gallery was putting up paintings for the exhibition the next day so Daisy might visit the gallery. And so it happened. In a black car parked at a safe distance from the gallery, Roman Spencer was waiting for Daisy to arrive. Matt, too, was anxious waiting for Daisy. Half an hour later than expected, he looked back at Roman and inquired, "Are we still waiting, boss?" Roman firmly replied, "Yes, wait." Matt couldn't help but sigh softly. He had a feeling that Daisy might not show up. He had rushed here an hour early, dropping everything to be on time. Half an hour past the scheduled meeting, Daisy hadn't arrived. In Matt's experience, she wasn't one to be tardy. If she didn't come, it meant she had decided not to. But then, in an unexpected turn of events, Daisy appeared. Matt blinked and even wondered if it was an illusion. Daisy was dressed in a bear-patterned cotton coat. Her legs looked slimmer, and she carried a small bag across her body. She approached the gallery from the intersection, and from a distance and side view, Matt couldn't see her face, only her short hair blowing in the wind. Matt glanced at Roman through the rearview mirror. Roman's eyes were fixed, and Matt couldn't help but sigh quietly. Not seeing Daisy was painful, but seeing her might have been even worse. Roman gazed at Daisy with almost insatiable desire. Just a few days apart, and he could tell she had lost weight. He sensed that Daisy had endured sadness and cried during their separation. The thought of her tears made his heart ache, like someone squeezing it, then letting go, only to squeeze it again and again, causing unbearable pain. He longed to rush to her and envelop her in his arms, to ease the torment of missing her. Every minute without her felt like torture, and his heart hurt to the point of breathlessness. Love, he realized, had the power to inflict this kind of agony, seeping into one's very bone marrow and mingling with their blood. It couldn't be peeled away, only endured. At this moment, he understood that his affection for Iris had been merely a habit, something he had grown used to. That's why, when Iris left, he didn't chase after her. But Daisy was different. No matter what she did, regardless of the pain she might cause him, he knew he had to get her back. As he had once told Iris, without Daisy, he felt like he would truly die. As Daisy entered the gallery, she spotted Matthew. She apologized. "I'm sorry, Professor Gilbert. I'm late." Matthew was in conversation with someone, but upon seeing Daisy, he immediately smiled and gestured for her to approach. "Come here. Let me introduce you. This is Mr. Davis, the gallery owner." Daisy, somewhat nervous around strangers, especially wealthy ones, bowed politely and softly greeted, "Mr. Davis." Arthur Davis was taken aback, casting an astonished look at Matthew. He knew she was young, but he didn't expect her to be this young. He had assumed that to organize an art exhibition at such a tender age, she must be a highly motivated and self-assured individual. Yet, upon their meeting, she appeared frail and timid, a far cry from his initial impression. However, her petite features were charming, and her most striking asset was her clear and intelligent large eyes. With the discerning eyes he had honed over years of appreciating art, he believed that if someone painted a few portraits of Daisy, they could capture her vitality and clarity. Such artwork should fetch a good price. Arthur playfully remarked, "You've given me such a grand gift. How should I ever repay it?" He acted as if he was overwhelmed and clasped his hands together dramatically, saying, "You have given me the paintings. The least I could do was organize an exhibition. Miss Daisy, I dare not accept more." Daisy, not accustomed to such playful teasing, exaggeratedly looked at Matthew as if seeking help. Matthew intervened with a smile, saying, "Arthur is just joking with you. Please don't take it seriously. We've hung up all the paintings today. I selected a few as focal points, but I didn't want to make the final decision without your input. Would you like to take a look?" Daisy waved her hands hastily. "I trust you, Professor Gilbert. You decide." Matthew, however, emphasized, "These are your paintings, so your opinion matters most." Daisy contemplated refusing, but Arthur wisely suggested, "There's no use arguing further, Miss Daisy. Let's have a look at the paintings first." Agreeing, Matthew and Daisy followed him in silence. The art exhibition was on the upper floor, occupying a substantial exhibition hall of around 200 square meters. Daisy noticed her paintings were meticulously framed and displayed on the walls. In some places, clusters of 3 or 4 paintings, bearing thematic similarities, were hung together. These connections sometimes revolved around common elements like insects or flowers she had painted. Strangely, she hadn't consciously intended for them to match, but Professor Gilbert's curatorial work made them appear harmonious and engaging. In select locations, large paintings were highlighted with spotlights, enhancing their vividness and richness. The oil paints conveyed depth and texture. Initially, Daisy had felt her works were too simplistic to be showcased, but as she watched them being framed and arranged, she secretly felt that they looked quite good. However, she hesitated to express her thoughts aloud. Professor Gilbert guided her through the exhibit, explaining the rationale behind the arrangement. He detailed why certain paintings should be grouped and why others should stand alone, along with their preferred placement within the display. Daisy listened attentively, occasionally nodding in understanding. She found herself pleasantly surprised by the intricacies of organizing a painting exhibition, realizing there was much more for her to learn. After wandering through the exhibition for some time, it was already noon. Arthur Davis suggested, "Miss Daisy, it's a rare visit. I'd like to prepare something for you for lunch, and I insist that you do me the honor of enjoying it." Daisy felt a bit overwhelmed by the politeness and teasing tone. She stammered, "Mr. Davis, no, I should be the one asking you for lunch. You're organizing such a great exhibition." But as the words left her lips, she realized she had only about $20 in her pocket and hesitated to continue.
Arthur Davis kindly responded, "Miss Daisy, there's no need to be so polite. I'm hosting the exhibition to make a profit. Once your paintings sell well and fetch a good price, then you can treat me to a meal." Matthew chimed in with a chuckle. "You see, even gallery owners like Arthur sometimes prioritize money over art." Arthur turned to Daisy and asked, "Miss Daisy, do you have a deep understanding of art?" Daisy promptly shook her head, and Arthur burst into laughter. "Only hypocrites talk about art. We are all practical here, so we discuss money. Miss Daisy, I'm quite optimistic about your work. Your paintings will definitely sell well." Matthew added, "In that case, let's thank Arthur in advance for his kind words. Daisy, since Arthur wants to treat us, let's pick a nice place and enjoy a good meal. Arthur has deep pockets." Daisy blushed, suggesting, "It doesn't have to be fancy. I think a street food vendor would be great." Arthur laughed again and winked at Matthew. "You're as humble as Miss Daisy." Daisy's blush persisted, and she remained the subject of their good-natured teasing. The trio left, chatting and laughing, and hopped into Arthur's off-road vehicle, heading down the road on the left. Once the car was out of sight, Matt inquired, "Are you going back, sir?"
Roman's gaze remained fixed. When Daisy had entered the car, he had caught a glimpse of her face, which bore a modest, red-cheeked smile. It was a smile he hadn't seen from her in a long time, one that made her seem like a shy, green-skinned orange. Her return to this familiar but reserved demeanor filled him with sadness, and he realized how much had changed. He spoke wearily. "Let's go." Meanwhile, John received a call in the midst of a busy workday. He had switched off his phone, and Mary called his landline. He answered with irritation. "Mary, didn't I say I didn't want to be disturbed?" Mary quickly explained, "It's Mrs. Smith on the line." John, adjusting his mood, responded cordially, "Please, connect." Once he was connected to the call, John adopted a pleasant tone and inquired, "Mrs. Smith, you called me personally. What can I assist you with?" On the other end of the line, John received a light scolding from Nina. She remarked, "Stop playing around. Let me ask you, why did you turn off your phone?" John replied, "I was busy and didn't want to be interrupted, so I turned it off." Nina couldn't help but chuckle. "Are you afraid of being pestered, or are you afraid of being teased?" John teased back, "My dear wife, with you by my side, who would dare to tease me now?" Nina snorted, "You're too careless, so I need to remind you from time to time." John assured her, "Darling, don't worry. I remind myself every day to be kind to life and stay away from all vixens." Nina was puzzled. "What's the connection between vixens and life?" John explained earnestly, "If I don't stay away from vixens, you might leave me. If you leave me, can I even go on living?" Nina couldn't help but chuckle and said, "You're such a talker. Enough with the nonsense. I have something important to discuss." John responded, "Ma'am, please go ahead." Nina revealed, "I know where Daisy is." John suddenly became very serious. "Really? Where is she?" Nina explained, "She's in the neighborhood where I used to rent a place. I don't know the exact building, but I have a rough idea of the location." John was surprised. "You, a pregnant woman who hardly leaves home, how do you know this?" Nina elaborated. "It was Rita who used to live above me. She had encountered Daisy a few times in the neighborhood, and she told me." John inquired, "Which Rita? Why don't I recognize her?" Nina clarified, "Have you forgotten? She's my cousin who introduced me to Joseph." John's brows furrowed. "Why are you still in touch with her?" Nina abruptly interrupted, "Something's not right," and hung up the phone. John stared at his phone in disbelief, muttering, "She actually hung up on me. We'll see what happens tonight." Despite his tough words, a faint smile played on his lips as he eagerly went to share the good news with Roman. After entering Roman's office, John first stopped by Sarah's desk and asked in a hushed tone, "How's your boss looking today?" Sarah replied, "Same as usual." John patted her shoulder proudly, saying, "Don't worry, I'm here to give your boss a boost. I'll keep him engaged for a while and he'll be back to his usual self." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "John, you used that adjective very well." John grinned confidently and then entered Roman's office. Roman was busy approving documents and briefly looked up at John, asking, "You probably don't have time to come to my office today. Is everything settled?" John leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and replied, "Almost, but there's something big on my mind." Roman inquired further, "What's the big issue?" John leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "I know where Daisy lives." Roman seemed unperturbed and asked, "That's it?" He resumed reading the documents. John was baffled, staring at Roman incredulously. "Did you not hear me properly? I'm talking about Daisy. Roman, Daisy." Roman responded calmly, "I heard you. I don't want you to meddle in my affairs. Go make a plan." There was another email from England this morning reminding you. John was left bewildered. What was going on? Roman was visibly affected by Daisy's absence, and yet he was reacting so indifferently to this news. It didn't make sense. Something had to be wrong with Roman's judgment. "Fine, I'm leaving," John said dejectedly. You handle your own business." As he walked out of the office, Sarah couldn't help but chuckle. "John, you went in there all charged up, and now you look like this coming out. What happened?" John playfully raised his hand, saying, "I'm ready for a fight." Sarah evaded his hand, and John laughed as he walked away. He should have realized that if Roman was calm and composed at the company lately, he must have had a plan in mind, yet he was still troubled by it. In a crowded bar in a dark alleyway, the lights were pulsating, the music was pounding, and the dancer on the stage was moving with unbridled energy, as if trying to release every ounce of heat in their body. The DJ was also caught in the rhythm, bobbing his head and tossing his hair, fully immersed in the madness of the moment. The dance floor was a chaotic sea of men and women, moving like possessed spirits in a midnight carnival. Iris sat at the bar, ordering a glass of margarita. She enjoyed the fruity flavor and the vibrant colors of the cocktail. Even while sitting, her shoulders couldn't resist swaying to the music. Her makeup was bold, featuring thick black eyeliner, purple eyeshadow, deep crimson lips, and luscious waves of hair that danced and swirled in harmony with the music. In the dimly lit atmosphere, she exuded an enchanting allure. A man approached, confident in his appearance with a tall and athletic build. 2 buttons of his shirt remained undone, revealing a sun-kissed complexion. His expressive eyes and bold style were enticing, but the fragrance of cologne gave away his intentions. Iris laughed heartily. Leaning in close, she playfully hooked her finger on his collar. The man raised an eyebrow and leaned in, his smile becoming more charming. "Beautiful. How about buying me a drink?" Iris giggled, her eyes sparkling like cold stars in the night. "Move along, you're not my type." The man took the hint, gracefully shrugging and seeking another target. Iris downed her drink in one go and ordered a Long Island iced tea. The night was just beginning, and this was her main course. She had a penchant for strong drinks, as she could get tipsy quite easily. While abroad, she had sampled various alcoholic beverages, but her favorites were tequila, rum, vodka, and martini, if mixed well. Downing a shot in one gulp, the fiery sensation traveled from her throat to her stomach, engulfing her in a blaze of madness. She relished that kind of wild abandon. She had been a borderline addict at one point, but due to Finn's insistence, she had to give up her alcohol addiction. But the desire to drink never truly left her. To replicate that feeling of inebriation, she opted for a Long Island iced tea with Coke and ice, a concoction that combined her 3 favorite spirits while keeping her from getting drunk too quickly. The tall, crystal-clear glass felt ice-cold in her hand, but she knew it was the best way to savor the moment. The wine in her throat ignited like a blazing fire, and she reveled in it. Sip after sip, she moved in tune with the music. Finally, after placing the empty glass on the table, she ventured onto the dance floor, a solitary figure. Iris had learned to dance as a child, blessed with a keen sense of rhythm and remarkable flexibility. She swirled and swayed to the music, releasing her unrestrained passion. Her curly locks danced around her, resembling wild serpents under the flickering lights. Amid the pulsating music, Iris felt like she was blossoming. She relished this sensation, thriving under the heated gazes of men. Her laughter echoed wildly as she shook her head and moved her hips, her youthful spirit in full display. Soon, a crowd gathered around her, with cheers, whistles, and intense gazes, as if they sought to consume her whole. The lights continued to flicker, and the music grew more fervent. Iris's eyes fluttered, and she offered a charming smile. A man took a step forward towards her, and she let him. When he put his hands through her flying hair, she let him. Iris was relishing the attention she was getting. She pulled the man closer to him, pressed herself against his body, and swayed with the music. As she was dancing, someone pulled her from behind. Iris didn't even look back and kicked backward. She couldn't be bullied by anyone now. The man suddenly took her by hand and dragged Iris with him. The man walked very fast, and Iris was pulled by him. For a moment, she couldn't register what was happening. She was suddenly frightened because the man dancing with her also had a frightened look on his face. He could see her being forced away, but didn't do a thing to help her. She twisted her hand to break free from the man's hand, but his grip was extremely strong. She pinched it with her nails instead, and she could almost feel her nails digging into his flesh, but the man seemed not to be afraid of pain and remained motionless. Just like that, he dragged her out of the crowd and into a corridor far away from the dance floor. It was quiet here. The man finally let her go. Iris turned around, her eyes so angry that they were about to spit out fire. She guessed it was him since he was the only one who would dare. Without thinking about anything, she rushed forward to slap him, but her hand was stopped in midair. Again, his tight grip. "Adam, you are a lunatic! What on earth do you want to do?" Iris shouted angrily. Adam's face was even worse than hers, and his eyes were so dark they almost looked sinister. They were so dark, like thick ink, they seemed to be swallowing her up. His voice is mocking her. "I would like to ask you what you are doing." "What am I doing? It's none of your business?" Iris's lips trembled with anger. "Who do you think you are to ask that question?" Adam narrowed his eyes slightly and shook her hand away, but took a step forward and forced her against the wall. "So you are mean now. I never knew you were so mean. A rich lady on the dance floor. You want to be touched and kissed by everyone, looking for excitement, aren't you?" He suddenly reached out, holding her chin, and raised it slightly. His tone became more mocking. "Look at how you look now. With all that cheap makeup, you don't even look like a lady you were raised to be. And all that for what? To prove that Roman something? Why does he have so much power over you?" Iris wanted to look away, but he held her face in place, making her unable to move at all. She was so angry that she spat. "What I do is none of your business. We are way past that, Adam Miller." Adam's pupils narrowed and he smiled. "Are we?" As he said that, he suddenly lowered his head and tried to kiss her. Iris was taken aback. She refused to let him succeed and felt as if the world was crashing down around her. Desperately, she sought an escape and bit his lip with force, the sharpness of her teeth piercing his flesh. The taste of metallic sweetness filled their mouths. Adam, in pain, released her and raised his hand to strike her. Iris met his gaze fearlessly and said, "Go ahead and hit me. It's not like I haven't been slapped before." Adam's hand hung in the air, his breath heavy. "Iris, don't push your luck too far. I want to see you behave," he warned. Iris burst into laughter, sharp and unrestrained as if she had heard the most absurd joke in the world. Adam, with moist eyes and flushed cheeks, simply smiled and retorted, "Iris, are you feeling unwell? You were the one who started this, but now you accuse me of bullying? Are you intoxicated or hallucinating?" Adam's stare remained intense but quickly turned sarcastic. "Other men can kiss you, so why can't I? Are you selective when you're out for a fling?" Iris grinned, saying, "I only entertain men, not animals." Adam couldn't help but laugh. "You may be selling yourself, but I'm not buying yet." With that, he turned and walked away. Iris watched him go with a mocking smile. He was living in a fantasy, she thought. This incident didn't dampen her spirits. Iris returned to the bar and ordered another drink. After sipping a potent Long Island iced tea, she felt a bit better. She wanted to get drunk, but she kept chugging in bottles and still couldn't feel the intoxication. In frustration, she thought, "Why do I keep encountering trouble wherever I go?" Iris finished the last of her drink in one gulp and promptly ordered another. A man sat down beside her, the same one she had been dancing with earlier. He held her hand and said with a smile, "I'll get this round." Iris chuckled, leaning close to him as she exhaled. "Thanks, then." He ordered a drink for himself and clinked glasses with her. So, who was that guy earlier? Your boyfriend? Not a boyfriend. She waved her hand dramatically, giggling. I've sworn off men. They're all dead to me. Why's that? The man moved closer and draped an arm over her shoulder. Iris nestled into his embrace, still smiling. Because they are. Have you ever loved him? The man lit a cigarette, took a drag, and then placed it between her lips. Iris expertly blew out a puff of smoke, her elegant fingers curling in a seductive manner. I've hated him, loathed him, despised him, and still do. The last words were almost forced through gritted teeth. The man chuckled softly. Without love, where would all this hatred come from? No, Iris corrected him. There's no love, only loathing, disgust, revulsion, abhorrence. Anything else? The man inquired. And, Iris paused thoughtfully, but her head felt a bit fuzzy from the alcohol. She swayed the wine glass and said, Let me think. What else? The man leaned in close to her ear and whispered, There's also repugnance, boredom, and tedium. Iris chuckled. Are you an English teacher? You're listing synonyms. The man's hand gently squeezed her waist and he whispered, Let's go somewhere else for a drink. No, Iris nestled in his arms, her eyes gleaming and her smile growing even more alluring. I like it here, so I'll drink here. Even though she was drunk, she still had her limits. However, the man insisted, Come on, I promise you'll enjoy the place I have in mind. Iris tried to grab onto something, but in vain. The man didn't need much effort to pull her off the bar stool. Iris felt a growing sense of unease and attempted to shake off the man's hand, but her legs were becoming increasingly unsteady. It was as though she might collapse at any moment. The man half carried, half supported her towards the door. The chill of the night air made Iris anxious. As they reached the door, she reached out and clung to a large pillar, refusing to go any further. Passers-by glanced at them, but continued on their way. In a place like this, such incidents were unfortunately common. As Iris and the man neared the bar gate, she realized what was happening and tried to get away from the man, but he refused to let go. She grew even more frantic, shouting incoherently, I won't leave! I won't go with you! Suddenly, a figure loomed before her, and there was a muffled sound followed by something falling. Maybe it was the man's body hitting the ground. Then her body felt weightless, as if someone had lifted her horizontally in their arms. She knew it wasn't the man who had been with her earlier. He had the scent of agave, but this new man carried a faint hint of mint. She couldn't resist, and her consciousness began to fade. She gradually descended into an endless darkness. As her last shreds of awareness slipped away, a thought crossed her mind. How can I avoid getting stabbed if I keep floating with criminals? She felt as though the man carrying her had a faint smile on his lips. When Iris woke up, she was in a luxury suit. The sun was up, it must be early morning. She couldn't recall the events of the previous night anymore. Opening her eyes, she was initially alarmed, thinking she might have engaged in something she'd regret. Yet, a quick examination revealed her clothes were intact. Aside from the pounding headache from the hangover, there was nothing unusual about her body. But who had saved her? Before she blacked out, all she remembered was being held by a man, her senses picking up a faint scent of mint. She strained to remember and realized that, through the haze of her consciousness, she could hear the man's heartbeat, loud and clear, as if a drum were pounding. She was in a daze, yet that sound resonated in her ears. Pushing herself out of bed, Iris noticed she wasn't in an ordinary guest room, but a lavish presidential suite. The room was spacious, with a bedroom, a small living room, a study, an opulent living room, 2 bathrooms, and even an extravagantly large double jacuzzi bathtub with glistening gold fixtures that dazzled her eyes. While Iris came from a wealthy family, such top-tier accommodations were rare even for her. Even Roman, who lived in a presidential suite himself, wouldn't have a room quite like this. Her curiosity intensified. Could the person who rescued her be a wealthy prince? The one who effortlessly lifted her had to be tall and strong, and the subtle scent of mint and exquisite taste only added to the intrigue. By all accounts, this person appeared to be the cream of the crop in the city. Iris knew nearly everything about Roman, and none of it fit. Wasn't he a local? Iris decided to freshen up and headed to the bathroom. As she washed herself, fixed her hair and clothes, and prepared to go out to inquire, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, she found the waiter who had brought breakfast. A tall girl dressed in a white uniform with black trousers and a purple silk scarf elegantly adorning her neck greeted Iris respectfully. Iris invited her in. Observing as the waiter placed a large plate on the table and set up a small, exquisite vase with snow-white ginger flowers, Iris couldn't help but appreciate the beauty of the flowers, which were typically found in summer, resembling delicate white butterflies and emitting a subtle fragrance. The waiter then uncovered the meal, revealing a Western-style breakfast with French buns, banana waffles, ham and cheese sandwiches, warm milk, and a small pot of hot coffee. Iris inquired, "Did the gentleman who sent this breakfast leave any message?" The waiter replied, "No, miss." Iris pondered for a moment and asked, "Do you happen to know the gentleman's name? I'd like to properly thank him." The waiter shook her head, saying, "I don't have that information." Iris pressed further. The room opening record must have been registered, and a room of this level should have detailed personal information. The waiter apologetically responded, "I'm sorry, miss, but that gentleman is using a top-level VIP card. Generally, information cannot be easily disclosed to guests of this level." Iris asked one more time. "Not even a name?" The waiter still shook her head. Accepting the situation, Iris turned her attention to the breakfast and asked, "Did the gentleman also arrange for this meal?" The waiter clarified, "No, breakfast is included in the room rate." Unable to get any more information, Iris let the waiter leave. She didn't have a great appetite, but she decided to eat a muffin to settle her stomach. After a cup of hot coffee, her headache began to subside, and she decided to go back home. She had crashed on her bed as soon as she reached. The next time when Iris woke up in her own bed, it was close to afternoon, and she had a looming headache and felt hungover. She remembered coming back from the hotel this morning. She would think about that later. Right now, she needed food. She went to the dining table. She sat there, filling her plate, hunger gnawing at her empty stomach. "What am I going to do with you?" came a voice. It was Polly, and she continued, "You're a lady from a famous family, but you stay out all night without informing anyone. If word gets out, what will people say?" "What will they say?" Iris nonchalantly took a bite of her food. "Hasn't it been rumored for a while? They say I'm a gold digger who steals someone's boyfriend." "You!" Polly couldn't hide her exasperation. "Why have you become like this? It's not the first time. If your brother and your father find out, it will be another round of scolding. Iris, your mother really worries about you." "I told you not to worry." Iris added some vegetables to her plate. "Don't do this," Polly admonished her. "How are you and Roman?" "It's fine," Iris replied casually. "Oh, the little maid is gone, so you can rest assured." "Really?" Polly suddenly became more interested. Why did she leave? Did she leave, or did Roman drive her away? Figure it out for yourself. "Oh, I see." Polly looked a bit disappointed. If it was Roman who had driven her away, that would be more reassuring to her. Just let her leave. Iris took a mouthful of rice and continued, "I don't care how people leave." "Roman didn't say anything about it," Polly asked. "With the company being so busy lately, how could he have time to deal with that?" Iris explained. "Mom, just keep your heart at ease. Roman and I will handle it for sure." "That's good. Get married soon and let Roman take care of you. It'll save your father and me a lot of trouble." Polly finally managed a small smile. Iris's head still ached a little, and she didn't feel like chatting with Polly. She took a few more bites and then headed upstairs. Iris decided to freshen up and headed to the bathroom. She gazed at her weary reflection in the mirror and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was no wonder her mother had scolded her. Her face looked worn and her eyelids were puffy, which was indeed cause for concern. After having food, she wanted to relax a bit, but the uneasy attitude Roman had displayed that day was still on her mind. Even after Daisy's departure, he seemed determined to go his own way and not follow her. She wondered if she had pushed too hard that night, which could have aroused Roman's suspicions. With Daisy gone, she couldn't afford any distractions. She needed to ensure that Roman remained focused and reassured. Iris examined herself in front of the mirror. She applied makeup, concealing the dark circles and fine lines. She had straight eyebrows, big bright eyes, a light blush, and watery red lips. It appeared natural, as if she weren't wearing any makeup. It took nearly 2 hours. At this moment, she couldn't help but reflect on the cruelty of time. Despite all the care she took, she couldn't prevent the onset of dullness and fine lines. She wasn't even 30 yet, but she dreaded looking in the mirror without makeup. In this regard, she envied Daisy. She was just 20, with tender skin, big eyes, and naturally red lips. Though reluctant to admit it, if she were in Roman's shoes, she would probably choose Daisy. Moreover, the young girl was as fresh as the rising sun, while she felt like withered autumn flowers. Her face revealed the changes in her heart and mentality. It was a different feeling. At this moment, she felt like she had the body of a 24-year-old, but the heart of an 82-year-old. She had been through so much, and despite her attempts to conceal it, certain marks couldn't be hidden. That night, she lost control, and they ended their relationship. Iris was uneasy as she made her way to the hotel. She was worried about Roman becoming suspicious or discovering something. However, when she arrived, the hotel floor's waiter informed her that Mr. Spencer had already checked out. This left her surprised and questioning whether he had moved back again or if Daisy had returned. She tried to contact Kathy, but she was on leave and had gone back to her hometown. Leaving the hotel, Iris's unease grew. She hurried to the apartment, but no one answered when she rang the doorbell. The housekeeper approached and asked who she was looking for. Iris quickly improvised, claiming to be a friend of Daisy's and inquiring if Daisy was there. The housekeeper, without any suspicion, informed her that Miss Daisy had not returned from her recent trip. Iris then asked if Roman was present, and the housekeeper mentioned that Mr. Spencer would be staying there but wouldn't return until after 6 o'clock. Iris thanked the housekeeper and decided to return later. In her car, she contemplated Roman's return to the apartment. What did it signify? Was he no longer worried about encountering things or missing people? Had he reconciled with Daisy? With all these thoughts in her mind, she eventually made the decision to visit Roman's office. Upon reaching the office, she encountered John in the corridor. When he saw her, he grinned and asked if she was looking for Roman. Iris responded with a smile, saying she had come for a friendly visit. As Iris departed, John shook his head and continued in a different direction. To Iris's surprise, she encountered Sarah, who obstructed her path. This was an uncomfortable situation for Iris, but she managed to maintain composure, politely explaining her desire to see Roman. However, Sarah informed her that Roman had declined to see anyone that afternoon, and she had to abide by his instructions. Iris tried to persuade Sarah further, but she stood firm, citing the rules and her responsibilities. Iris grew frustrated and threatened that Roman might blame Sarah for this. Sarah, undeterred, remained steadfast in following protocol, which infuriated Iris. She suggested that if Iris continued to cause a scene, it wouldn't be in anyone's best interest. Iris, realizing that acting up would push Roman further away, left in anger. "She's such a troublemaker," Sarah muttered behind her back. She believed that Iris was not simple and had likely caused Daisy's departure. She was willing to take the heat for assisting Daisy and wasn't worried about any potential confrontations. On the fixed date, the art exhibition proceeded as planned, but Daisy felt a bit nervous and preoccupied. Her night had been restless, leaving her sleep deprived. She woke up early, choosing slightly more mature attire for the occasion. Kevin, showing his support and courage, decided to accompany her to the event. Arriving at the gallery before 9 in the morning, they had intended to help with the preparations, but everything was already in order. Arthur invited them to sit in his office, which was adorned with antiques. There was a beautiful tea set on the table. It had been passed down through generations, featuring intricate carvings of blooming plum blossoms on the root of an old tree. Even Daisy, who was not well versed in tea ceremonies, couldn't help but admire its beauty. Arthur explained the significance of the tea set, a family heirloom that had been passed down from his ancestors through generations. He revealed that a collector had recently offered a substantial sum for it, but Arthur couldn't bear to part with this precious relic, as it held great sentimental value as part of his family's heritage. Matthew chuckled and responded,
"It sounds like they might not be willing to pay the price you're asking. If someone offers more, you might be tempted."
Arthur nodded and replied, "Unless they offer an astronomical sum, it's absolutely impossible. If my father were to find out, he'd have my head." Our family has deep roots in art and related businesses. We have some aristocratic values, but I'm a bit more grounded. As they chatted, the kettle boiled. Matthew prepared the tea, giving it a gentle shake before pouring the water into the tea set's hidden channel. Daisy, somewhat surprised, asked, "How do you pour it out?" Matthew explained, "This is called rinsing the tea. You only drink the second infusion."
Kevin chimed in, "You city folks have your specifics, even with good tea leaves. You have to rinse them." Matthew clarified, "It's not about the tea being dirty. The first infusion is usually too strong and can overpower the subtle flavors, so we discard it." Kevin shared an amusing anecdote. "In our area, tea is precious. We just use a small amount of tea leaves in a pot, and that's enough for a delicate tea flavor. If you want it stronger, it's a no-go. If you poured out the strong infusion like this, my grandmother would call it a waste of money." Laughter filled the room. Arthur gracefully poured the tea into small cups, presenting the golden, shiny, and fragrant tea soup. Daisy lifted her cup to take a sip, but noticed Matthew's more cautious approach. He first sniffed the aroma and then sipped slowly. This made Kevin curious, and he asked, "Professor Gilbert, are you so cautious when drinking tea? Are you afraid of the taste being wrong?" Arthur chuckled. "He's savoring the fragrance. It's a part of the tea-drinking experience. He enjoys appearing elegant. There's no need for you to follow suit." Kevin, however, decided to give it a try. Such a small cup, and I just gulped it down without savoring it. "Arthur, pour me another cup. This time I'll follow Professor Gilbert's lead and savor it slowly." Arthur obliged, pouring another cup for Kevin. While the conversation flowed and laughter filled the room, Daisy glanced at the wall clock, feeling a bit anxious. The art exhibition was scheduled to begin at 9:30, and it was now 9:40 with no guests in sight. She hesitated, stopped mid-conversation a few times, and finally couldn't help but express her concern. "Are we having no visitors because a number of my pieces are on display and I am not a very good artist? You could take my paintings off, Professor. I don't mind." Arthur reassured her. "Daisy, don't worry, it's still early. After all, you're going to be an artist in the future. Have a little confidence in yourself. People will surely arrive before 10. Kevin chimed in, "We're just getting started. Why are you feeling apprehensive? As Arthur said, show some confidence. Besides, I believe in your talent." Daisy hesitated and remained silent, battling her lack of confidence. She felt unsure and didn't want to disappoint Arthur or hurt his business. Her words reflected her doubt. Noticing Daisy's silence, Matthew playfully teased, "Daisy, is Arthur still expecting your paintings to bring in money for him? But you've dampened your own reputation first. Arthur's heart will be quite cold." Arthur, however, remained optimistic. "No, I have great confidence in Daisy. I believe she'll exceed my expectations and selling her art won't be enough."
The atmosphere lightened, and they were all invigorated when the staff announced that visitors had arrived for the art exhibition. Excited, they hurried out to greet the visitors, and Daisy's acquaintance with an art connoisseur began. Matthew encouraged her to say hello, and though she was timid at first, she eventually agreed. Matthew urged her further. "It's a good opportunity to offer a glass of wine." Daisy went up to the sign-in area on the second floor, where a wine tower was set up. Glasses of red wine were on display, gleaming like purple-red crystals under the light. Daisy was no stranger to serving beverages, having done this in the Spencer family before. She approached a man and offered him a glass of wine. He took it and thanked her, but didn't pay much attention. Arthur then stepped in, introducing Daisy to the man, Warren Richard. Arthur presented Daisy as the featured artist, emphasizing her potential, and Warren extended his hand to greet her. Daisy, anxious and hesitant, reached out to shake his hand, feeling out of her depth in this unfamiliar art world. Warren was taken aback by Daisy's shyness and reserved demeanor. He couldn't help but wonder how Arthur had decided to exhibit her paintings, given her seemingly timid disposition. Arthur, aware of Daisy's discomfort with strangers, found an excuse to have her leave the scene. This left Warren to express his doubts. "Arthur, where did you find this person?" "She doesn't seem confident." Arthur, however, emphasized the importance of individuality in today's art world and praised Daisy's unique use of color. He believed that her distinctive style would attract buyers. Warren remained skeptical, questioning Arthur's motives. "You never do anything without a reason. Are you certain about her paintings? Why are you investing so much in her? What's your angle?" Arthur chuckled, downplaying the complexity of his decision. "It's not that complicated. A friend recommended her. I liked her work, and I decided to showcase it." "You need to stop being so suspicious, Warren." Warren remained unconvinced and scrutinized Daisy more closely. He noticed her beauty and wondered if Arthur's interest went beyond her art. This skepticism lingered as the event continued. Visitors began to arrive one after another, and Daisy continued to stand at the check-in area, offering glasses of wine to guests as they arrived. Most assumed she was merely assisting with serving, and some approached her with various questions, such as the location of the smoking area, the restroom, and inquiries about the painter. Daisy, overwhelmed and blushing, struggled to respond. Kevin, witnessing Daisy's unease, took the initiative to introduce her. "This is Daisy. She's the artist behind all these paintings." Despite Kevin's efforts to introduce Daisy as the artist behind the paintings, many guests remained skeptical and simply smiled before moving on. Daisy's lack of confidence was apparent. Kevin expressed his frustration, telling Daisy, "Daisy, can you please be more confident?" "No wonder no one believes me when I say you're a painter," Daisy replied in a hushed tone. "You know I'm timid." She then spotted Helen and her son approaching and hurriedly greeted them. "Aunt Helen, you're here." Helen's son, Mick, expressed his admiration for Daisy, and Helen shared how she brought her son to see Daisy's exhibition. Mick greeted her and praised her artwork. Daisy countered, praising Mick's achievements in a school speech contest, but Helen playfully criticized her son. The conversation lightened the mood, and Helen and Mick decided to explore the exhibition on their own. Daisy felt somewhat aimless at the signing area, but Kevin encouraged her to mingle with the guests and gather their opinions, as her art deserved evaluation. She decided to follow his advice and explore the exhibition further. Daisy thinks what he said is right. She is actually afraid of praise, but not afraid of criticism. She will be at a loss when someone's praising her, but she will accept criticism very pertinently. With her hands in her pockets, she silently walked through the crowd. Sure enough, she heard someone say, "This painting is too childish. Why are you opening an art exhibition with such a big fanfare? I should have known I wouldn't come." Someone nearby said, "You think it's not good because your appreciation level needs to be improved. I think it's good." Although it's not very realistic, the artistic conception is very good, especially the bold use of colors, which is very visual. Another person echoed, I feel the same way. Although the painter is unknown and the paintings are a bit exaggerated, they are of their own style, have a very good artistic conception, and the price is not very high. I have taken a fancy to a small one. Please help me get it. The group of people left, and Daisy stood there with a smile on her eyes and brows. Great. Someone is really willing to buy her paintings. After a while, Arthur's voice was heard from the loudspeaker.
The first painting was sold for $3,000 today. Congratulations to Mr. Robert Adler.
Daisy was ecstatic that someone was selling paintings even if she wasn't. She wanted to find Kevin. When she turned around, she saw a familiar figure. She felt as if someone had tapped her acupoints and she couldn't move. The message was still playing repeatedly on the loudspeaker, but Daisy couldn't hear it anymore. She only heard the thumping of her own heartbeat. She suspected that she had been deceived, so she rubbed her eyes and looked again. It turned out to be an illusion. There was no Roman. She looked around, but he was nowhere to be found. He had no idea when and where the exhibition would be held. Even if he knew, he would not come. He and Iris are now in love with each other and will not remember her anymore. The exhibition went on and various paintings were sold. What surprised Daisy was that she had sold 2 paintings, that too for very good prices. She was trying to act modest about it, but in her head she was jumping. She was aware of how much she needed the money and how much this earning was going to help her. Daisy, after her initial shock, managed to regain her composure. She walked back to the signing area where Kevin noticed her odd behavior and questioned her about it. Daisy reassured him that she was indeed happy about the sale, especially given the price of almost $5,000. Kevin teased her about her frugality and suggested using the earnings to buy a mobile phone. Daisy, however, had a more generous idea and proposed treating Aunt Helen's family to a meal to express their gratitude for her support. As they discussed the newfound potential for wealth from Daisy's art, Matthew approached them, encouraging Daisy to explore the exhibition and gather feedback from the attendees. Just as he spoke, the loudspeaker announced another sale of 4 paintings worth almost $10,000 to an anonymous buyer, adding to the excitement of the day. The excitement continued as Kevin and Daisy marveled at the substantial earnings from the art sale, almost reaching $10,000. Kevin, in his enthusiasm, inquired about how much Daisy would receive from the sale, to which Matthew explained the typical artist gallery revenue split, with Daisy receiving 70% of the proceeds. Daisy was touched by Matthew's support, but wanted to be more generous. She proposed a 50% split with an extra share for Matthew, but he declined, expressing his happiness in helping her realize her dream. You are worthier than you realize, Daisy. It's high time you accept your worth and start demanding what you deserve. Never settle for less. Matthew patted her and left. As she wandered through the crowd, Daisy couldn't help but reflect on the good people she had met, like Professor Gilbert, Arthur, Nancy, Sarah, Nina, and even Roman. She longed to share this moment of happiness with him, but was overwhelmed by the realization that they had become strangers, a fact that filled her with sadness. Daisy tried to distract herself by walking among the paintings, but a strange feeling nagged at her as if someone were watching her. She glanced around but found nothing unusual. This unsettled her because she couldn't shake her thoughts about Roman. Eventually, she found a painting that captivated her. It depicted a little girl running with a kite, surrounded by butterflies and blooming flowers, all against a backdrop of a vivid blue sky. The piece was a harmonious blend of elements, inviting observers to immerse themselves in its rich, 3-dimensional beauty. Many people were drawn to this artwork, engaging in lively discussions around it. Daisy, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, stood at the back, eavesdropping on people's comments about the painting. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure that seemed impossible. Roman. She questioned her own eyes and quickly rubbed them, but he was still there, gazing at her silently. His eyes held an enigmatic depth, surrounded by a radiant glow, making him seem almost otherworldly. As people moved around them, Daisy felt like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Her heart raced, her palms grew sweaty, and she was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Was it really him? After just a few days apart, he looked leaner, with more defined features, but his clenched jaw and tense chin made her think he might be angry. She wasn't sure, and the uncertainty filled her with dread. Her first instinct was to escape. Then, a voice, not particularly loud but commanding, broke the silence. It was his voice calling her name, Daisy. The hushed crowd shifted their attention towards her, realizing that it was Daisy's art exhibition. However, few had recognized her until that moment, so when her name was spoken, it sent a wave of surprise through the room. All eyes were now on her. Daisy stood by her painting, illuminated by the spotlight, feeling like she was suddenly in the center of a stage, but her face displayed fear, no matter how you looked at it. Daisy stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to move, her eyes fixed on the man approaching her. "Do you still want to run?" Roman's question was direct, cutting through the tension. She defended herself, but her voice was small and wavering. "I didn't run away." Roman fell silent, his gaze intense and inscrutable. Panic overtook Daisy, and she began to speak rapidly, unable to stop the flow of words. "I'm so glad you could make it." "But how did you know? Professor Gilbert must have told you, didn't he?" "Someone bought my paintings. I have money now. Which one do you like?" "I'll give it to you. Actually, even if you didn't come, I'd still be happy. Of course, I'm so much happier that you could come." She wasn't usually talkative, but at this moment she couldn't stop. If she paused, she'd burst into tears. She felt utterly helpless and had a tendency to cry when things overwhelmed her. Roman remained silent, simply listening to her, watching her struggle to hold back her emotions. Her eyes slowly reddened, and a watery film covered her gaze. Then, without a word, Roman acted. He pulled her into his arms, and Daisy was taken by surprise. She made no attempt to resist as he kissed her in front of everyone. She felt like she was in a dream. Everything around her faded away, and it was as if she was in a black and white silent film. Only Roman was real. His embrace was as warm as ever, and his breath was so familiar. Daisy clung to him, overwhelmed by how much she had missed him, a longing she had hardly dared to acknowledge. If this was a dream, she never wanted to wake up. Inside, Kevin heard a commotion and felt curious. He entered the room only to have his face turn pale with anger. He was about to rush over, but someone held him back. He turned to see it was Matthew, who shook his head, signaling Kevin not to intervene. "Professor Gilbert, you don't know. That guy named Roman is not a good person," Kevin insisted. "I know what you think of him, but let's wait a bit before creating a scene. Today is a special day for Daisy."
"Let's not embarrass her," Matthew replied. "This is her own moment, and it's better if we don't interfere." Although Kevin was frustrated, he had to stand still for now. He couldn't help but feel disappointed in Daisy for not living up to his expectations. He lost his resolve when he saw Roman. The onlookers in the crowd were equally stunned, their faces frozen in bewilderment. From a distance, Warren observed the scene and remarked to Arthur, "Did you plan this as well? To generate publicity and grab attention? You staged this spectacle. It's no wonder so many media outlets are here." Arthur gazed at the couple deeply in love and smiled. The legendary CEO of the Spencer family, known for his cold and stern demeanor, has a passionate side, it seems. He fell in love at first sight. It's bound to make headlines. Warren was taken aback, looking at Roman again, and said, "That's Roman, the president of the Spencer family? How did you manage to invite him? Wait, I get it.
You're trying to please Mr. Roman by hosting this painting exhibition for Daisy, Arthur chuckled, dismissing the notion.
You're getting suspicious again, my friend. I have no business dealings with Mr. Spencer, so there's no reason for me to try to please him.
Initially, a hushed silence fell over the crowd, but then applause broke out, spreading quickly until almost everyone was clapping. The warm applause finally snapped Daisy out of her daze, and she struggled slightly, prompting Roman to release her hand. His eyes were tender and his lips curved into a bright smile, but Daisy felt utterly embarrassed, wishing she could disappear into the ground. At her own painting exhibition in front of a large gathering, she and Roman kissed. Many people were holding up their smartphones to take pictures, while some had professional cameras on their shoulders. Daisy was completely disoriented. She didn't know what she was doing, nor did she know how to resolve this situation. While she was lost in thought, Roman suddenly knelt down on one knee, producing a ring as if by magic. It was an impressive diamond, exquisitely cut, with 8 hearts and 8 arrows, dazzling enough to make the onlookers gasp in unison. Such a beautiful diamond was undoubtedly priceless. I liked this one, so I got this, Roman stated, raising his head to gaze at her with sincerity.
Daisy, will you marry me? From this moment forward, I'll love only you. My love is genuine and I'll keep every promise. I'll never mistreat or deceive you. I'll believe in you even when others doubt you. I'll support you when you're down and share your joys when you're happy. You're the most beautiful in my eyes, and I dream of you. There's only you in my heart.
Daisy's eyes filled with tears as Roman's sudden proposal caught her by surprise. She had thought he had forgotten those words, but he had kept them in his heart all along. Yet Daisy couldn't fathom this turn of events. Hadn't he chosen Iris? Weren't they a couple? If he had moved on and no longer wanted her, why was he proposing now? Confusion clouded her mind as she looked at Roman through tearful eyes, slowly shaking her head and stepping back. Roman's expression shifted as he watched Daisy step back. He extended his hand, sliding the ring onto the ring finger of her left hand. She couldn't refuse, her eyes glistening with tears as she beheld the dazzling diamond. It was breathtaking, but she couldn't help but feel unworthy. Coming from such humble backgrounds, how could she wear such beauty? A voice inside her whispered, "You can't accept this. You're harming him." Her heart sank and she pulled her hand away. Roman's grip tightened and he warned, "If you don't speak, I'll take it as your consent." Daisy bit her lip, tears falling silently. Roman tenderly kissed her eyes, saying, "Darling, there are no buts. Trust me, everything's fine." The crowd erupted in various sounds, leaving Daisy too embarrassed to face anyone. She buried her head in his arms as they walked away. In the car, Daisy's tear-stained face stung in the cold wind. Roman replaced her icy hands with his warm ones, asking gently, "Feeling better?" Daisy kept her head down, unable to meet his gaze or speak. Roman sighed. "Let's go home, all right?" Daisy shook her head, her resistance weakening. "Why?" Roman's voice wavered. "Don't you want me anymore?" His words pierced Daisy, and she wept again. He held her, pleading, "Don't cry. It's my fault. I shouldn't let you cry. You're my everything, Daisy." Through her tears, Daisy said, "I know you still care about her. I don't want to make you suffer. I'm so sad. Why did you come back to me? Why?" Her voice was broken, and every word stabbed at Roman's heart. Roman hugged her tightly, whispering, "You're my everything. I only love you now." Daisy's tears subsided, and Roman gently wiped her face with a tissue. She wanted to smile, but couldn't. The text messages, phone calls, and the check haunted her. She left to make Roman and Iris happy, but those thorns pierced her heart, causing endless pain. Roman, seeing Daisy's unease, knew she still had doubts. He started the car and drove away from the gallery. Daisy felt emotionally and physically drained. She stared blankly ahead. Too much had happened today. But amidst the complexities, she believed in Roman. As long as he was by her side, she felt safe. Roman was her haven, her source of security. Roman drove Daisy home, and when they arrived, it felt like another world. Each time Daisy left, she thought she'd never return, but Roman always brought her back. He turned on the heater, warming the house. Roman went to the bathroom, gently wiped her face with a hot towel, and asked, "Would you like to take a nap?" Daisy shook her head and stood in the hallway, lost in thought. Roman motioned for her to sit, and she obeyed silently. Roman sighed, taking her hand. "Could you please say something? Your silence is driving me crazy." Daisy kept her head down and didn't speak. Roman coaxed her patiently. "If you don't know what to say, just call my name, okay?" Daisy bit her lip but stayed silent. "Lift your head and look at me," Roman instructed, raising her chin. She reluctantly met his gaze, and Roman teased, "If you don't look at me, I'll kiss you." She was caught off guard and quickly hid behind him, accusing him, "You're teasing me again." Roman chuckled, relieved that she finally spoke. "Okay, since you don't want to rest, let's have a serious conversation. I don't want any doubts between us. I want you to trust me completely, and I want to trust you too. Can we do that?" Daisy hesitated, but nodded. Roman went to the kitchen, made 2 cups of hot tea, and handed one to her. "You go ahead. I'm sure you have a lot of questions for me, right?" Daisy held the cup, took a sip, and the warmth flowed through her. She sipped again and said, "When I left, I wanted to say goodbye to you. But you didn't meet me and had Iris send me a check." "Why did you do that?" Roman raised an eyebrow, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I didn't ask her to send you a check. I had no idea about it. But every time I called, she answered, and you two were always together," Daisy said. Roman frowned, sensing something was amiss. "Have you tried calling me?" "The one I talked to that night when you left was her. She told me you were in the shower." Daisy's face turned slightly red, a mix of embarrassment and anger. "That day," Roman recollected, "I was indeed taking a shower because she got drunk, vomited on me, and didn't want to go home to face her family's scolding. So I took her to a hotel. But don't jump to conclusions. We did nothing. I got her a separate room to sleep in." Daisy pouted and muttered, "But why were you together?" Amused, Roman reached out and playfully pinched her lips. "You can stop pretending now. Are you jealous?" Daisy huffed, turned her head away, and evaded his hand. Roman continued, "I think I fell into her trap that day. She deliberately got drunk, stayed with me, and aimed to make you jealous." Daisy inquired, "You've been spending a lot of time with her lately, haven't you?" Roman shook his head, his expression growing serious. "There's something I need to confess." This alarmed Daisy, causing her heart to race. She stammered, "What is it?" Roman urged her not to get angry, but Daisy, feeling anxious, said, "Never mind, you'd better not say it." "See, you're scared," Roman chided. What a coward. He proceeded to explain what happened the day he got drunk and ended up sleeping with Iris, making sure to emphasize that nothing more transpired. Despite that, sleeping in the same bed with another woman weighed heavily on him. Daisy, upon hearing this, pondered the situation and finally said, "As long as she didn't do anything to you, it's fine." Roman was uneasy, but agreed. Of course she didn't. Daisy reassured him, "You're also a victim." Roman said, "So my life has been quite difficult recently. I missed you, fell into Iris's plot, and had a mountain of work at the company. I was really exhausted and couldn't sleep well at night." With all the misunderstandings cleared, Daisy regretted her trust in Iris. She shifted closer to Roman, who secretly reveled in her approach, but maintained his composure. Daisy cautiously tugged on his sleeve and admitted, "I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I chose to believe Iris over you. I was wrong." The situation had turned in Roman's favor, and he began to settle the score. Do you acknowledge your mistake? Daisy nodded. If you acknowledge it, make amends. It's not too late. Tell me, how will you make it up to me? I'll trust you from now on. Only you. Unless you say you don't want me anymore, I won't leave you again, Daisy vowed. That's your compensation, and I've accepted it, Roman affirmed with a satisfied grin. Compensation, Daisy chimed in. I'll compensate you any way you want. Roman wore a proud smile as he whispered in Daisy's ear. She blushed and stammered, Oh no, we've made a deal. There's no turning back now. Roman chuckled, lifting her into his arms and heading to the bedroom. Roman savored a gourmet meal and then set about making lunch for Daisy. He had noticed her weight loss during the art exhibition. Her cheeks had sunken, but when he touched her thin shoulders, he felt a pang of sadness. He knew he had to work hard to ensure she remembered this day, but he couldn't bear it any longer. By the time Roman left the room, it was already past lunchtime. Thankfully, his culinary skills came in handy. He prepared a spread of 4 dishes, soup, and steaming white rice, being careful not to overcook to prevent her from being hungry. Within an hour, lunch was ready. Seeing that Daisy hadn't emerged, Roman entered the room and called her. She was curled up, sleeping soundly with a lingering flush on her face. Warm imprints adorned her neck and shoulders. Roman kissed her tenderly and said, Hey, honey, wake up. It's time to eat. Daisy kept her eyes closed, resembling a lazy kitten. She murmured, I want to sleep. You can sleep after eating, okay? Roman gently coaxed her. Good girl. I made your favorite tomato scrambled eggs and mushroom and meat slices soup. Can you eat some when you wake up? Although Daisy was a little hungry, she felt utterly exhausted, as if her very bones and muscles had been drained of strength. She reluctantly half opened her eyes and mumbled, What else is there? Roman playfully pulled her out from under the covers and leaned against the bedside. There are also roasted chicken legs and bagels. Is that enough? Her eyes sparkled and she lifted the quilt, preparing to jump out of bed. But she was a bit too hasty, her head felt dizzy and her body swayed. Roman swiftly caught her. What's wrong? Why don't we eat in bed? Daisy gazed at the pristine white sheets and comforter and shook her head firmly. She didn't want to risk staining them. As she turned away, Roman seized the opportunity to lift her up and stride out of the room. Daisy exclaimed, What are you doing? Put me down, Roman smiled. You have to repay what you owe me. Perplexed, Daisy asked, What do I owe you? Roman winked with a grin. Hugs, kisses, and you know. This time, Daisy fully comprehended. She blushed and lowered her eyes in silence, realizing that in this regard, she could never be Roman's equal. While they dined, Sarah called to ask if the afternoon meeting was still on. Roman delegated the responsibility to John, explaining that he had taken leave for a bit to be with Daisy. Roman decided to postpone the meeting and assured Sarah he'd be back at the company later. Sarah hung up the phone, feeling puzzled by the change in the boss's tone. It was evident that his voice was completely different, much happier and more satisfied. Compared to her recent experience with Roman's moods, she found it gratifying. This was a stark contrast to the boss's usual cold and indifferent demeanor. With the boss's instructions, Sarah dutifully relayed the message to department heads. When someone inquired about the rescheduled meeting time, Sarah simply responded with, "To be determined." Roman had been unusually serious and stern lately, casting a gloomy atmosphere over the Spencer family. Even on a weekend afternoon, no one dared to be idle or go fishing. Everyone sat in their offices, anxiously awaiting the revelation of the rescheduled meeting time. Roman had originally planned not to return to the company that day, but he changed his mind because he had to sort out a few things before the vacation. He thought he would also attend the meeting in the meantime. His scene at the art exhibition hinted at a looming storm, since it was a weekend and he had promised to take Daisy to the beach to enjoy the warm winter sun. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. After lunch, Roman said, "Daisy, come with me to the company later." Daisy replied, "I won't go. I want to sleep." "Then sleep in the lounge where no one will disturb you and it'll be quiet." Reluctant to go, Daisy pouted and asked, "Can't I just stay at home?" Roman was insistent. "No, you have to come to the company with me." Daisy was surprised and inquired, "Why? You usually don't force me like this." Roman took her hand and led her back to the room to change clothes. "Because," he said seriously, "I'm afraid that when I come back, you'll be gone again." Daisy's heart raced and she stared at him in disbelief. Roman rarely revealed such vulnerability, making her uneasy. She nestled into his embrace and whispered, "I won't leave this time." Roman said nothing, holding her tightly for a while before declaring, "Let's go. I have a meeting in the afternoon." Daisy nodded and obediently followed him to the company. The moment Sarah saw Daisy, she was so astonished that she could fit an egg in her gaping mouth. It was a rare loss of composure, but she was genuinely delighted, perhaps even happier than finding a windfall. She gave Daisy a warm hug and whispered, "It's wonderful to have you back." Roman stood at the door, impatience evident in his cough. Though they had been apart for only a few days, it felt like an eternity to him. The suffering and heartache they had endured, and now the joy of reunion, made him unwilling to let Daisy out of his sight for even a moment. Daisy grinned shyly at Sarah and followed Roman through the door. As the door closed behind them, Sarah couldn't contain her excitement. She realized the reason for the boss's unusual tone, Daisy's return, had brightened his world. At least now he didn't have to wear that dark expression all the time. When Roman headed for the meeting, he arranged for Daisy to rest and instructed Sarah to ensure no one entered the room. Sarah promised to protect Daisy, even if it meant facing Iris. However, just before Roman reached the door, he turned back and said, "By the way, book 2 air tickets to Hawaii. Let's also reserve a hotel with the best sea view for tonight." Sarah inquired, "Should I book a return ticket?" Roman replied, "We won't make that decision yet. We'll discuss it later." "Understood. I'll do it right away." But Sarah suddenly remembered, "Boss, I don't have Daisy's ID number." Roman swiftly wrote down the numbers and handed them to Sarah. Sarah nodded as Roman walked away, her heart filled with joy. With no one around, Sarah quietly slipped to see Daisy, who was in the office lounge. The young woman was sleeping soundly, her face flushed from the warmth in the room. Sarah adjusted the temperature, tucked in Daisy's quilt, and left the room without making a sound. Daisy was undoubtedly Roman's remedy. Without her, he was in a grim state, but her return had brought warmth to their workplace. The president's office was like the Antarctic, and with Daisy's presence, the boss had transformed into a radiant and energetic figure, creating a completely different atmosphere. With no need to accompany the boss to the meeting, Sarah opened the internet to read the news. She was utterly shocked when she saw the headlines, and she felt like she wanted to swallow an egg. Could it be true? Was that really her boss kneeling on his knee and publicly kissing someone? The sensation was beyond belief. She couldn't comprehend how her boss, with his looks, physique, family background, and education, could be so affectionate. How could he live life as a single man? Why were there so many glass-hearted girls who regarded Roman as their dream lover? Sarah couldn't help but want to slam the table and sing, but she had to keep it discreet. She wiped her teary eyes, finding herself deeply moved by the situation. The last thing Sarah expected was that Roman would propose in public. This news was sensational and explosive, spreading widely on the internet, with all kinds of comments flooding in. Someone commented, "Love is in the air." Someone else wrote, "Roman always has style." One read, "He's tall, rich, and handsome, and still so affectionate. I want him." There were comments praising Daisy. "That girl is so pretty, no wonder he fell so hard." There are also a few negative comments like, the usual tricks of a playboy. One said, "That diamond can buy anything, including affection." Sarah was scrolling through these comments with great interest when someone entered the room. She glanced up and her smile froze. She quickly minimized the window and greeted, "Hello, Miss Iris." Due to their previous unpleasant encounter, Iris didn't offer a smile as she walked in. "Is Roman here?" Sarah, still focused on her work, replied, "The boss is in a meeting. If you need anything, you can leave a message." Iris, without wanting to engage in a conversation, stated, "No need. I'll wait in his office." Sarah swiftly moved to stop her. She was apprehensive about the situation. Daisy was inside and she couldn't allow Iris to enter. If Iris did something to her, the boss would be angry beyond control. "Sarah, what's the meaning of this?" Iris frowned at Sarah's interference. "Is this how the president's secretary treats guests?" "I'm just following the boss's instructions," Sarah replied calmly and politely. She smiled. "If you feel aggrieved, you can bring it up with the boss. I'm not afraid." As long as she stood firmly on Daisy's side, nobody's complaints could harm her. Iris looked at her suspiciously. "Do you have a problem with me? Last time you refused to let me in and claimed Roman didn't see visitors. This time you're doing the same thing. Are you trying to prevent me from seeing Roman?" "Miss Iris, you're overthinking," Sarah maintained her smile. "I'm simply following the boss's orders." Iris stared at her, her frown deepening. Last time she wasn't allowed to enter, so she made a commotion at the door. Roman must have heard the loud noise from inside, but he didn't come out. It was clear he didn't want to see her. She couldn't leave it this way. With Daisy away, she had a chance to meet Roman while he was alone. With this in mind, Iris pushed Sarah and attempted to open the door. Sarah was shocked and stumbled back, but she grasped her clothes and warned, "Miss Iris, if you continue, I'll call security." Iris squeezed her hand tightly and retorted, "Go ahead and scream if you like." She was determined to enter. She didn't believe that Roman would have her thrown out, even if they had a disagreement. As they wrestled by the door, someone opened it. Iris froze at the scene that met her gaze. The world around her almost stopped. It was like a slow-motion scene from some movie. The door frame was pushed back slowly, revealing a thin, frail figure, Daisy. Daisy had lost some weight, and her face appeared more defined. Her short hair gently brushed against her cheeks, framing her enlarged eyes. She seemed like she had just woken up, her face still bearing traces of sleepiness, but her eyes remained as pure as ever. Daisy was dressed in a pink short coat and jeans. Roman didn't know much about women's clothing brands, but he knew a few because she was a fan of those brands. Seeing Roman get Daisy the stuff he used to get her sent a pang of jealousy through her, but she was helpless. He'd bought clothes for her before, but not often, no more than 3 times etched in her memory. He didn't want Iris to feel the pressure to be with him instead of Adam just because he could spend so much on her. At the time, Iris didn't pay much attention to Roman's emotions, her heart fully devoted to Adam at the time. Hence, Roman had stopped selecting attire for her. But now, he was purchasing luxurious, high-end outfits for Daisy. Iris stood there, frozen, holding Sarah's hand, still in shock. Sarah reacted quickly, pulling her hand away and stepping forward to protect Daisy. She whispered to Iris, "You woke her!" "No, I woke up on my own." "What's happening?" Daisy was baffled. She had just awakened, noticed Roman's absence, and was about to ask Sarah about it. To her surprise, she saw Iris and Sarah outside the door. Sarah told her, "It's okay, go back inside and don't come out." She gently nudged Daisy into the room, trying to shut the door behind her, but Daisy kept standing there. Iris said with a sneer on her face, "So there's a reason you insisted on entering." "Someone's in there." "Sarah, is this fair?" "I already told you," Sarah repeated. "I'm just following the boss's orders. Miss Iris, why make things hard for me? I am just a secretary?" Well, I don't need to see Roman, but I can talk to Daisy, right? Iris demanded. Of course not, thought Sarah. She couldn't trust Iris, especially with her suspicion that Iris might have been involved in Daisy's previous departure. Letting her talk to Daisy alone would be like leaving the canary with the fox. Absolutely not. Sarah gave Iris a wary look and silently shook her head. Iris chuckled. So, is it the boss's order not to let Daisy talk to me? Is he some kind of clairvoyant who knew I'd show up? The boss didn't tell me that, but I personally think that if you want to talk to Daisy, it's safer to wait until the boss returns and speak in his presence. What? Are you afraid I'll devour her? Iris taunted, looking at Sarah mockingly. Who are you to protect her like this? Or do you think she's going to become the boss's lady, so you're starting to favor her now? I protect her because she's young, naive, and easily taken advantage of. As for her relationship with the boss, it's a matter between them and doesn't concern us. It's best not to be overly curious or meddlesome, Miss Iris. Curiosity killed the cat, Sarah snapped. Iris wore a frustrated expression. She hadn't expected Sarah to be so resolute. She had underestimated her before. Sarah was sharp-tongued and unwavering. Iris shifted her focus from Sarah to Daisy, her gaze cold and unrelenting. Aren't you too timid to even listen to a few words from me? Daisy bit her lip. She had pieced together the whole story and felt it was time to stand up for her love. She also had something to say to Iris. Sarah, let her in. I want to talk to her too. Daisy. Sarah looked anxious, turning around and lowering her voice. She's very formidable. I'm worried she might harm you. No, I'll be careful, Daisy whispered in return. Continuing like this isn't a solution. There has to be a way. Iris grew impatient. Have you two made up your minds? It's not a big deal. Can I really harm her? It's okay. Daisy pulled Sarah aside and said to Iris, Come in. Wait a minute, Sarah interjected, still worried and recalling Caroline's incident. Since Daisy said she wants to talk to you, go ahead, but I need to keep your bag with me. Hey! Iris's face displayed even more sarcasm. Are there security checks here? You're quite protective of Daisy. Fine, I'll do as you say, but I'll need to take my phone with me. What if someone comes looking for me? Sarah nodded and reached into her bag to retrieve 2 mobile phones. She handed one to Iris and pocketed the other. Daisy led Iris to Roman's office, and she followed. They entered and closed the door behind them. Daisy reminded herself not to show weakness. She took on a more confident demeanor and invited Iris to sit down. Then she walked to the intercom to ask Sarah to bring tea. Sarah answered, half pleased and half amused. She was pleased that Daisy had finally stopped giving in to Iris. She found it amusing that despite Daisy's efforts to sound confident, her cautious tone still revealed a hint of fear. Sarah complied, prepared hot tea, and brought it in. She served Iris and Daisy, then asked, Do you have any other instructions? Daisy was momentarily startled and nearly revealed her nervousness. Sarah quickly winked at her, and Daisy caught on. She sat up straight and gestured like Roman, saying, It's fine, you can go. Iris let out a scoff and glanced between Sarah and Daisy. Impressive performance. Shall we talk after you're done with your little act? Blushing, Daisy looked at Sarah, somewhat uneasy. Sarah patted her as a sign to stay calm, cleared her throat, and said, I'll step out. If you need anything, just call me. Thank you, Sarah. Daisy decided to stop pretending, as acting was proving quite challenging for her. Sarah exited the room, her mind racing. She still felt she should inform Roman, but hesitated to leave. What if a confrontation erupted inside? She finally decided to make the call, but found that it was hung up as soon as it connected. Sarah was somewhat unsure. Roman wouldn't hang up on her unless it was an extremely important meeting. After all, Daisy was here. Sarah made a brave attempt to call again, but it was disconnected just as before. Panic started to creep in for the usually smart and capable Sarah. The room was eerily quiet, and she couldn't hear anything even if she pressed her ear to the door. She felt so anxious that she began pacing the room. Ultimately, she decided to go there in person. She instructed a clerk to stand guard at the door and told him, "Don't worry, if there's any commotion inside, just rush in and protect Daisy. Understand?" The clerk nodded firmly. He was well aware of Daisy's importance in the president's heart. Sarah left the room. The atmosphere inside the room was not as tense as Sarah had imagined. Daisy was calm and a bit unassertive, but she was good at getting her point across to the other person, however timidly, and for some reason, people seemed to accept her demands. That's how Iris felt right now. Whatever she said had no impact. Daisy remained unwavering in her decision. She was adamant that she would stay as long as Roman didn't personally drive her away.